All right, here we are. We're here with Aaron Keller. Cancel your plans. Put on your thickest socks. Settle in your cozy spot. You know the one. The 6v6 director's take is live now. So I already clicked on it. So it goes over the information Blizzard over here. And it's a long take. Like, it's huge. It's a massively long thing. Let me see if I can just zoom in a little bit better so you guys can actually see what we're going to be talking about. Because it's right here. This is the main subject of information we're going to be talking about. And it's long. It's really long. So, hello, Honest. If they want to keep 5v5, why not just make it an option? We'll get into that. We'll get into all of that. I was gonna make a video on this. I still am gonna make a video on it. But I figured you guys that come to the live, I guess live stream, live show, right, deserve to hear my thoughts and opinions, live reaction. I'm still doing a lot of thinking over having read it. I've already read it once, but I'm gonna read it again. There is a lot to this dev blog, like a lot. Okay, so we're gonna be here for a while. So, like Aaron said, strap up, get your comfy socks on, lay back, get a glass of tea. You're about to hear a very sick person try to read the dev blog to you. So, but it's okay. That's what cough drops are for, right? So I'm gonna quickly take one of these. That way I have like a soothed throat. So when I do this, when I talk about it, you know, I won't cough as much. That's a theory, you know. So just give me a second. But without further ado, guys, I would love to know how your day has been going. I hope your day is good. I hope you've been having a fantastic time. I have been having a good day. I've mainly slept all day. I talked to some of my friends. They're like, you should just sleep. Just sleep, Thor. Just don't stream. I was like, dude, I haven't done anything all day. I can't just not do at least something, right? And I really like to stream. It's my favorite time of the day. Like, this is what I love to do. So I don't really make being unless I'm in the hospital, guys. Unless I'm in the hospital, I'll still show up to my scheduled times, you know. So I don't think you guys mind hearing my deep voice. It's not super deep, you know, but it's hey, I'm sick kind of voice. So let's go ahead and let's start this conversation. Hey everyone, there's been a lot of talk about 6v6 lately, and it's only intensified in the recent weeks since we've last posted our director's take and made a Twitter post with a promise to talk about it in the future. Well, now is the future, and this is the next piece. So, let's get into it. Wait, let's not get into it quite yet. This is a pretty complex and nuanced topic, and it gets to the beating heart of what makes this game tick. Our players have different opinions and preferences on what the ideal number of players in an Overwatch match. So does our team. We're a microcosm of a broader community which discusses this internally. I'm hoping this is the piece will will serve as an introduction to our own discussion and a jumping off point to engage with all of you. So, Aaron Keller is really took a long time to get everything out, and I feel like there's a bit to go over and talk about it. And I think from what I know was about to come up, he makes some pretty good points, but I also think some of the points are also disingenuous, and we'll get into that when the time comes. But Like, I'm glad that we're getting this type of communication from Aaron and the dev team, because back in Overwatch 1, they would not they would not, well, talk to the community as much. So that is a good thing about it so far. All right, let's go ahead and continue. I'd also like to set a few expectation and ground rules. First, it's pretty long. Creators are going to lose their voices reading this one aloud. If you like a TLDR, the what's next section should suffice. Secondly, I'm not here to tell you what you ought to like or what's empirically better. This is a game, and your preferences for fun are relative to your own taste, ability, and experience. Lastly, there are years of discussions that affect such a fundamental piece of Overwatch. Some of you might intimately aware of these, while others might not. Before diving in, I'd like to set the stage and give some context on some of the larger changes to the game that ultimately accumulated in the 5v5 format we have today. And here we go. The historical this is basically going over all the big changes they made to Overwatch 1. So game of the year in 2016, Overwatch was a okay, we'll just read it because he's gonna go over it. I really don't want to repeat some points that he's already gonna make, so let's go ahead and just jump straight into this. There have been 3 large format changes to Overwatch. The first happened shortly after the game launched, and this was hero limits. Before this, there could be any number of one particular hero. You could have 6 Genjis or 6 Reinhardts. If my memory serves right, the winner of Team 4's first internal tournament was 1 Winston and 5 Zenyatas. We called it the Quinston. Zenyatta orbs stacked with no cap to healing at the time. It was glorious and terrifying. Yeah, that was huge. That was one of the big reasons why they didn't know hero limits. Okay, let's just continue. We'll talk about it after. During the early development, it was necessary to have duplicate heroes per team. Our first core combat milestone only had 4 heroes as a roster. This game no longer necessary. Okay. As the roster grew, this was no longer necessary. It also introduced the issue Overwatch heroes have distinct kits and impactful abilities. Stacking abilities could be fun, but it posed challenges to balancing of many of those abilities in the game. People reference double barrier, but back then you could have 6. Imagine cycling 6 immortality fields. The number 1 team of compositions. Yeah, see, like, okay, so he's basically saying it's a good change why we got rid of no limits, and he's not wrong. Like, nobody's saying that this is wrong from what he's saying here. I mean, I guess there might be somebody saying that this is wrong, but I don't think he's wrong. I think he's absolutely right. Having 6 immortality fields would be annoying as heck. I mean, hell, we already have 2 immortality fields in 5v5, and y'all know my opinion about that. It makes it like slamming my head into a wall, you know? So he's not wrong, like, in that aspect. Okay, let's continue. Okay, the number of team compositions and strategies was huge. A variety was great, but we didn't feel like we could ever truly balance the game without severely watering down our heroes. So we made the choice to impose limit of 1 each hero per team. Essentially solved the issue of ability stacking, but it did have a few side effects. The trade-off was some of the creativity in putting new team strategies together in compositions for a more consistent and balanced experience. It took away some choice from players. If someone wanted to play Tracer but you were already Tracer, the song reference, alright, they would be unable to play. A theme of this and future discussions was limiting match variety as well as the freedom of creativity in order to create a more balanced, consistent and competitive experience for the players. Remember this point. We'll be touching this in a few more times pieces. Okay. In the other two large format changes were a lot of positive benefits and are not as clear cut. Okay, so there we go. The second change to the format was open queue to roll queue, which limited the team compositions to 2 heroes to each role. Before roll queue, there was no enforced 2-2-2 composition, and players had the freedom to select any role once loaded into a match. With an open queue, teams often had a lot of freedom choice with what heroes and team compositions could play, but there was quite a few problems with roll queue intended to address. Prior to implementing roll queue, there was a stark imbalance in number of people playing each role within the match. Damage, by far, and still today, which is true, the most popular role, and tank was by far the least popular. In fact, seeing matches with 5 or 6 damage players on a team was not uncommon. And he's not wrong about that either. So, like people have said, 5v5 was always the queue time format change to get queue times up. And we'll see that more going on into this dev blog. But we're going to go ahead and continue. This role imbalance frequently led to wildly imbalanced matches between teams. The game played better with heroes from all 3 roles were selected. And that's where it starts. It started at the top. Like, the really skilled players would build really good teams and have very different variety selections. While the people, when you got into gold, bronze, and silver, it was the Wild West with the roles, okay? You'll see this as we continue on. Since we couldn't balance around a certain role ratio for each team, it even made introducing new heroes more difficult, since any new hero kit had to take consideration of hundreds of different team compositions and abilities that could overlap with. And the move to roll queue format was aimed to mitigate these challenges. Alright, moving to roll queue solved many of these problems and added some additional benefits to the game. Well, with roll queue in place, matchmaking is based on skill within a given role, not just skill overall, which was a big problem in Overwatch 1 because they would matchmake you skill overall back in the day for your comp match, and some people that were really good at support would be forced to play DPS or forced to play tank, which was more often than not, and they wouldn't be able to win or clutch the games because they'd be forced to play a role that they weren't good at. So this is a really good change. Roll queue was a huge pog, by the way. Like, as much as people want to say roll queue is bad for the game and we should try 5v5 open queue, we have 5v5 open queue. It just doesn't get played because it's not the main format of the game. So if people liked 5v5 open queue more, there would be a lot more people that play it. I think regardless of where the game mode is on the screen selection, if the game mode is fun, people will play it. But yeah. Okay. So the ability to matchmake around set roles provides a big measurable boost in match quality. Roll queue also solidified the identity of each role, and the fantasy of doing that role's job became clearer, which is the destruction of offense versus defense, which I still think they kind of like, they follow that fundamental still to today. I would bet this just based on how they designed some of the heroes like Malga and Ramattra. Say what you want about Malga, but he's not good into defense. Say what you want about Ramattra, but he is way better at the enemies come to him than he is going to the enemies, which means he's an objective defense-based character. Okay, I'm not gonna argue about that much. Like, I still think that they still kind of follow that philosophy. for certain roles. I think the damage roll just has kind of had a content drought, so we haven't seen that from the damage roll as much, but I can still give you characters like Symmetra and Torb and Junkrat are better defensively than offensively. You know? It's just how some game modes played, which is why 2CP was a pain in the ass for most characters, because inherently defensive characters were always really, really good on those maps, and not a lot of people liked playing against inherently defensive bunker style teams, which is why I think once 2CP got absolutely obliterated, I think we should have just kept 6v6, because I don't think people hated that format. I think they just hated 2CP game mode, and I think a lot of the problems is there was way too many 2CP maps than there was of any other game mode in the game, and the content was dry. Okay, gosh, I'm already starting and I haven't even finished. Okay, however, I'm gonna start again. However, the switch to roll queue system did have some downsides, the largest of which was much longer queue times. Prior to roll queue, Matchmaker just needed to find 12 players with similar skill levels in order to put effective matches together. After roll queue, it needed to find 4 players of each role to make that match. The total of numbers, people hated the camping style gameplay. Yeah, it's what we've been playing now, though. If you think about it, think about all the main tanks that have been dominant meta in 5v5, and it's still the dominant meta mostly today. It's just bunker style sustain, which means poke. So, like, I don't know. Well, I do know, but saying I don't know makes me more friendly. I'm gonna take a sip of tea. Roll queue matchmaker. Okay, yeah, we've already read that. It's almost solely governed by the ratio of people queuing for the least popular role. Given the game's lower relative ratio of players queuing tank than any other damage and support roles, queue times went way up. We'll go into details about this later. You guys have already know my opinions on that. I think the reason why tank was so unpopular is because, okay, gosh, they'll talk about this later, but I'm just letting you guys know I have fundamental disagreements to this right now. This is where me and Aaron start disagreeing on stuff. Okay. The team tied to the address of imbalance in various ways. We introduced priority paths. Yep, okay, so this is where it's going. Players who played the low demanded roles tank a shorter queue when they switched to damage, then they would have a positive effect on several weeks, but the influence quickly faded. We also introduced systems to reward players for playing tank, eventually giving them a loot box and a bunch of XP for queuing that role. None of these were able to put a dent into the demand for playing DPS. Damage queues drifted a bit lower over time, but much of this was due to the introduction of open queue competitive and the permanent loss of damaged players unwilling to wait that long for a match. That's also true, but the reason why that's true is I've always said this is just the lack of options to the tank role. Back then, when this was first a thing, you have to realize, okay, let me click on this. Okay, so in the tank role now, we have 12 tanks. In Overwatch 1, we had 5. So my argument has always been the lack of options for tanks. There wasn't that many diverse tanks that you could play. It was D.Va, Orisa, Reinhardt, Roadhog, Sigma, Winston, with Wrecking Ball and Zarya. All right, there wasn't that many tanks, and Sigma and Wrecking Ball and Orisa didn't come out for a while. Okay, so you had the main tanks of D.Va, Reinhardt, Winston, Zarya, and Roadhog, and they would trick DPS players into playing Roadhog all the time. That's why Roadhog never got hardly nerfed in Overwatch 1, because they knew they could get damage players into playing Roadhog. So hog metas were more rampant back then. But now I'm saying why the whole problem was lack of options, because I feel like Doomfist as a tank, Junker Queen and Mauga and Ramatra definitely solve that problem. We have so many more tanks. The problem is now is that people hate playing solo tank because solo tanking with all the CC in the game right now absolutely blows booty chunks. Okay? And welcome back, Bitchy. So that's the problem. I've already said that the main problem that Overwatch 1 had was lack of content, and it's so obvious throughout many stages of its life. Like Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 from 2016 to 2022, Overwatch 2 has already passed most of the balanced matchmaking within a year and a half of its lifespan than Overwatch 1 had in 4 to 5 years of it being released. So you're telling me it was just a lack of content. First and final point. If we had this team working on 6v6, I definitely believe that they could handle it way better than the old team could, because now they don't have the fake promise of promoting Overwatch 2, you know? In 2019. Okay, I will continue reading about the dev blog. This is going to take a while. Hopefully I don't disconnect again. I will do a recording talking about this. So, okay, the team tried to address the imbalance in various ways. We introduced priority pass. Okay, we already talked about this. There were additional drawbacks to role queue. I mentioned earlier that many discussions made improvements to the game cost match variety, the player freedom. Team compositions were now locked to 2-2-2. This was another step to move consistent experience within Overwatch, but sometimes the consistency can start to feel samey. There were some pretty exciting metas in pre-roll queue, world and swapping to hero to a different role mid-match was often much bigger change and more exciting than swapping to one of the same role, like hero limits. Role queue took away that part of freedom in selecting heroes that served as much as the base of Overwatch, but I often wonder if the success of it is as cut and dry as the hero limits. Could there be an in-between versions of softens and original problems without completely solving it? And it also isn't quite as restrictive as our current role queue system. A bit more on that later. Third major format change, as several these challenges, as long as longer queue times, led us to the third party major format change to the game. With the shift to 6v6 to 5v5 this is almost a blog within a blog. We're going to cover three things: why we switched to 5v5, why queue times after 5v5, what the team thinks is 6v6. Here we go. Why we switched to 5v5. There are many reasons to the transition of 5v5. We launched Overwatch 2 and we talked about a greater individual agency that players could have in 5v5. Overwatch is a team sport and requires players to rely on others to be more successful, which is great. But also, you have to realize that not many people are willing to work together in a forced way. So when people feel like they're forced to help other people out, it makes people instantly want to not help. So you have to, the problem has always been like, how willing are people to swap to help their fellow teammates? And the answer is not often, unless you're grouped up. And they took the look group finder away for that, which was also good because well, no, I wouldn't say it was good. I really liked the look group finder. When I was back into playing a lot of comp, I have like 100 hours on comp. That was back when I didn't have a lot of friends I could play Overwatch, but I would join look group finders to run teams. And since to be unfair, I was a tank player, so it didn't matter what team I joined on, people would just accept me anyway. So it was really nice for my, needing of attention. Look at those stray widows who won't switch. Yeah, I'm looking at one in the comments right now. Anyways, I'm kidding, not the answer. I'm kidding. Okay, but okay, just the fuck. Okay, until the ultimate combos could be executed to break through 2 tanks worth of mitigation supported by high uncontested healing output, the world of 6v6 could have really high highs but really low lows. One of the design goals of 5v5 was try to raise that floor, even though it was at the expense of some of those high moments. I think the problem with 5v5 with the highs is that you get one high per match, and then the rest of it is just middle poke ground fighting, which is a very low. So the problem that they thought was in Overwatch 1 is that there would be a lot of high moments, and then there was also a lot of low moments too. So it would go up and then instantly down, and then up and then instantly down. But in Overwatch 2, they raised the floor, so it's not as down, but it's still down much longer, and then one spike that wouldn't reach the same high as 6v6, but it would bump up only for it to go back down. And in game you can see this. Like the gameplay fundamental isn't as fun as it was in 6v6. I need to get the code for the 6v6 code that people have been playing, because I really want to try it, but also I play really late at night, and I think most of those people that queue for that are in the morning, unfortunately. So Overwatch 2 has a greater emphasis on FPS gameplay. There's less damage mitigation in CC. That's not true anymore. Players get to shoot at enemies more, which they're unkillable enemies, I would say. Like, I was watching Akari stream this game last night, and their Soldier 76 had 15k damage and only 4 kills. And we knew what that soldier was doing is he was only shooting the Roadhog. But the Roadhog doesn't die unless your supports allow you to kill the Roadhog. So there are about 1 to 130 minutes, much more time spent farming for ultimates. Yeah. Well, back in Overwatch 1, you could farm tanks for ult charge a lot easier. So ult fights were happening more frequent in Overwatch 1. So yeah. Okay. So here's all the CCs. A 5-second Sombra hack. Oh my gosh, I do not miss that. May freeze on her primary. It depends. I mean, May freeze, you could counterplay that a lot back in Overwatch 1, because Reinhardt shield would stop it. Brig could stop it. I mean, anybody with a barrier could stop it, and then you could have Lucio speed you out of it. So, I mean, it just depends. But yeah, I guess against other DPS and other supports, like Ana, was pretty oppressive. Brig Bash, which they fixed. Honestly, which is even worse now. Orisa Halt, which is, oh gosh, but they got rid of that, so you can't really count that. And Sigma Rock. Sigma Rock is a skill shot, though. I don't think that one counts. I feel like if you land a Sigma Rock, they deserve to be, take the effect of the thing. It's not like the Sombra hack. It's not like the Brig Bash. It's not like the May freeze. Okay, so counting Sigma Rock into that is kind of whack. I mean, you should have said cast flashbang, and I would have been like, oh, okay. But Sigma Rock is not really one of the ones I was worried about. Consecutively to one player, typically a tank who couldn't often survive this onslaught, at least in the game. Their real life mental health was another story. That happens more in Overwatch 2. We have so many clips of one tank taking every CC cooldown now. So like, we have the same problem in Overwatch 2. So you can't tell me that we've solved that problem. That problem has only ever been increased in Overwatch 2. There's less technical CCs, but being slowed is still a CC, you know? And other things like the hack grenade, which often worked better than Sombra's hack, was ridiculous for how long that lasted in the game. So that's where I kind of disagree, especially because I'm a tank player and I have never been as stressed out in Overwatch 1 than I have in Overwatch 2. Overwatch 2 endlessly stresses me out more than Overwatch 1 ever did. Damage heroes often complain about their role was the least impactful relative to the strength of the super powerful tank synergies and support heroes undoing their playmaking. That problem was also due to supports, because Overwatch has always been a game where they're too afraid to nerf support healing. Okay, they've always been afraid to nerf supports. They say damage is the most played role, but the support players are the most vocal. Okay, so they're too afraid to nerf supports because that's the vocal, I wouldn't say minority, because the tanks are the vocal minority now in Overwatch 2, but a lot of people just don't care. It's just fine. I mean, it's gone on for so long. It just got really worse, and it's just been a constant downhill spiral. So then be buffed to oblivion. Yeah. Okay. Support heroes also had focused exclusively on their healing since there was bigger team health pools. Not anymore. Not anymore. Health pools in Overwatch 2 now surpass health pools in Overwatch 1 by a lot. Like, Roadhog's health is like, you stacked another Overwatch 1 Roadhog on another Overwatch 1 Roadhog and you have Overwatch 2 Roadhog. And Overwatch 2 Roadhog would definitely destroy Overwatch 1 Roadhog in a 2v1 setting. So like, don't tell me that the supports have to focus on healing their teammates when they have to do that already. Okay? Shooting, okay, so they talk about alt tracking, shooting barriers, and not big enough time windows to just shoot enemies and get eliminations. They don't do that anyways anymore because tanks just eat up the damage, but they get just the dopamine of like they're doing something, but they're not. That's how a lot of DPS players could rack up 20k damage but only have 3 kills, because they shoot at the unkillable tank. Okay. Oh my goodness. See, this is where I just start to disagree dramatically, but it's nothing wrong to do with him. I just think that that's wrong. I think it was just bad management. Well, bad management on the old Overwatch 1 team. Like, I don't think these problems weren't solvable. I think they were. I just don't think we had the right team to do it. I think that Aaron and his team could solve all the problems in Overwatch that Overwatch 1 had now, and they basically have. It was just a content drought was what killed Overwatch 1, and the lack of updates and balancing. That's it. Like, the 4 heroes that are the catalyst of Overwatch 1's downfall was Sigma, Orisa, Bap, and Brig. Everything that is wrong with Overwatch 1 always ties to those 4 characters. You can't tell me otherwise. And in Overwatch 2, what characters are the problem childs in Overwatch 2? Orisa, Hog, Malga, Sigma, most often. Now they've updated Ball, where Ball is literally unkillable. Okay, so Ball, I would include him in that. Kiriko, Immortality, Bap, and still Brig. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, to say that there was more problem children in Overwatch 1 than there are in Overwatch 2. It's just not true, because Immortality and other
stuff has just become so rampant in the game because of the format change. So I don't know though. Okay, here we go. The queue time arguments. This is the chart that shows the queue times from 6v6 to 5v5. Oh, okay, well that did not do anything. But as you can see, Overwatch post roll, this is the damage roll. So it was 7.6 minutes per wait in Overwatch 1. But this is where I disagree with a lot of what he's about to say here, because a lot of this is taken from the dead years of Overwatch 1. He's saying I respect it, but he's still at least one of my favorites. That's totally fine. That's totally fine, Mukpai. I think that's very valid. I can understand why people would put him in the #1 spot for their doctor. Like, I totally get it. But just on a personal basis for me, like, I was mostly a teen at the time when he was a doctor, and I just stopped watching after he was done because I got onto other stuff. I just don't know. I just don't think he just had the emotional impacts that the other doctors had on me when I was growing up. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's bad. I think he's good. I think what he did to the role with the doctor was very good. I think he had a lot of fun playing it. All right, sorry. But as you can see right here, the tank role didn't change that much. The support role changed. It got cut in half. The DPS role is still a long wait. So that's what we've all been saying, is that the only argument I give 5v5 is queue times. But my counter argument has always been, do you want 10 crappy matches or 5 good matches? And my argument has always been, like, but I know what I'm saying is biased, okay? Because I'm speaking for, like, the try-hard players that really want to have, like, good fun. I'm not talking about the people that are casual, that are quiet about the game, but want to hop in and out whenever they feel like the people that can only play for a short amount of time, which is a big chunk of the Overwatch's player base, which is what he talks about down here. But I've always been one of the persons that, like, I would rather have a quality match more than just a pile of dump, you know? Because I'll get punished. End up losing either way. My supports won't switch, or our tank gives up because the other team is dominating and our DPS only shoot at the tank and can't hit shots to save their lives. That's so true. That's happened so many times in Overwatch as we played. All right. Okay. The biggest factor of driving the difference between Overwatch and Overwatch 2 is queue times. Yep, we all knew that already. We hear players speculate on long queue times as a result of not enough players in playing Overwatch. That isn't the case. I feel like that is the case because we went from a $60 paywall to being free to play. So obviously I feel like that opens up a floodgate amount of people that are willing to join the game. Okay? And I disagree heavily with anybody says it wouldn't matter if there was a $60 paywall or if it was free to play off the get-go. I think that matters hugely, especially in the ecosystem that we're in today, where most of the games that are played consistently every day are free to play live service games. So
You kind of smell. What the? Like a baka.
Company Rat, thank you for the 10 bits. Hi, I appreciate you. I appreciate you too, Company Rat. Welcome in. Okay. Regardless of the amount of players in game, okay, wait. The sharp drop-off
of it's a sharp drop off in queue times in October of 2022 is when Overwatch 2 along with 5v5 shipped. The queue times of all heroes dropped and now much shorter than they were in 6v6. That is so, like, that's not fair of a comparison. If you're comparing, it'd be more fair if you compared the increase of when Overwatch 1 first started compared to the Overwatch 2 first launched. I'd like to see those numbers back when it first started. I feel like comparing the numbers in 2022 alone, the game had been dead for 4 years with no content. Because it came with a few skins, I think. Yeah. You got candy? Nice. Why was I put in the box of shame? How could you? Just flipping the switch and returning to 6v6 would likely cause return of previous match queues, times, or worse. Regardless of the amount of players, queue times are always reflective of how many people are queued per role. In other words, the main driver of increased queue times is ratio of players queued in each role. Since there are less queuing as tank, queues would likely go back to the way they are. Yeah, but my counter argument to that is, like, if you look at the data right now, or well, I guess before season 11, because we don't know that, but season 8 to season 10, we had a 10% drop off of players every season. So I don't know what you're saying. Like, if you give this game 4 years, dude, we're gonna have the same queue time issues as we did before. Like, that's what I'm seeing. Because, like, the tank players just don't want to play because the role is so stressful. It's the most stressful role there is. Okay, what are you setting? The red accepted his fate. Okay, not the answer. I always get put in the box. Oh my goodness. Regardless of the amount of players in queues are reflective of how many people per. Okay, we've already talked about that. Thoughts on 6v6. Okay, so, geez, it's so long. All right, we got a ways to go still. We're on the thoughts of this game. The game started its life with 6 players on each team. I discussed why we moved away from 6v6, but that doesn't mean it's without any merit. There are moments in madness that could happen with 12 players in a match that just don't quite coalesce. I don't know how to say that. When there are 10, it was too much to keep track of. Correction, it was too much to keep track of at times, and it was part of the charm. There was big moments in Overwatch 2, but they don't quite have the same chaotic over the feeling of them. The part of the chaos always allows the player to feel less pressure and extra time to slack for one of the performing poorly. Yeah, it allows you to pick up slack for someone performing poorly, which has always been good. Always. Aurora. Ow. Miley. Hello, Miley. I knew you. It's one of the last weeks when you were for work drinking. What?
25 drinks so much? Man, I'm feeling silly.
Oh my gosh. I'm sick. I put it in the title, but I shoved it towards the back of the title, so you might not have seen it. All right. I am sick though. I have a fever of 100 and something right now, and my throat hurts, and I got problems doing the breathing, you know. So I'm a little bit slower than I am. So yeah, I have cough drops. I have exactly 4 cough drops left. And I ran out of tea. My tea remaining has gotten cold. So I cannot drink that anymore. All right. Okay, we went over part of the chaos. Okay, yeah. Teams would fold a bit slower than they do now. When we went over some of the issues of tank synergies earlier, by having two of them allowed to focus on protecting their back line with the other holding and pushing forward into the enemy team. The tank role had a lot of depth and understanding on how to work with the other tank in the team. It was part of the mastery curve, took a long time to learn, and a small group of people devoted to it. It was part of the allure. We mentioned the difficulty of balancing tanks in 6v6 in the past year and a half, showing us that there are issues balancing tanks for 5v5 as well. For much of Overwatch 2, tanks have been fairly balanced, but when one of them becomes overpowered, a powerful outlier like Mauga that can strongly be felt in the world of one tank. Yeah, Mauga, Hog, Orisa. The gets nerfed with a Mega Sledgehammer and then slowly buffed back into meta. Because sustain in Overwatch 2 is always more important than anything else you could argue for. Because the tank will always be the bullet sponge, so sustaining that pressure is always more important than doing anything else. Which is why Ball has been popping up a lot more, because he's good at disrupting teams and then having people focus on him while he runs away and gets fully healed up by the passives and health packs. But that was all set up. I think it's more important. Oh yeah, I think I've put more effort into this than an essay I wrote in college. So where do we go from here? At the end of the day, we want to make the game that players want to play. Because of the challenges mentioned previously, we are focusing on making 5v5 the best experience that it can be. However, we operate as a service to our players. We always remain open-minded and to reevaluating our decisions based on your actions and feedback to give the best game experience we can, rather than to introduce a disruptive permanent change to the game. We prefer to explore the space further and make changes based off that exploration. We got a format to focus on. With that said, we're looking at running a series of events to try out different core team compositions formats for Overwatch 2. The community has just once or twice suggested a test. Why not put various forms of 6v6 in the game in order to gauge the results? We agree, and based on your feedback, we're exploring to test different forms of 6v6 to gauge the results. This is taking some time. Listen, this better not be 3 DPS, 1 tank, and 2 supports. Okay? And this better not be 2 tanks, 3 DPS, and 1 support. This better be 2-2-2 to start with. Okay? Now that has me a little bit worried. I mean, if it's maybe 1 support, maybe that'll be fine. Because I feel like supports are better equipped to run solo than tanks are. But, you know, I hope it's 2-2-2 and not 1-3-2 or 2-3-1 to get DPS queue times down. DPS queue times are always going to be the hardest one to solve, but I feel like 1-2-3, they would never do 3 supports in the game. Maybe they would actually. I mean, it could happen. But 3 supports would make everything unkillable. The first and honestly largest reason we need to do this in a way that allows the game to have optimized technical performance, I'm referring to frame rate memory constraints. With 12 players in a match, there has been a few upgrades since Overwatch 2. He's talking about the Switch. There's no way he's talking about the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4. He's talking about the Switch. Didn't Fortnite have to remove the game from the Switch too? That's not your fault. I don't feel like. No? Okay. But he's definitely talking about the Switch. There's no way he's not. Because I don't believe that he's talking about the Xbox or the PlayStation. That would be impossible. Maybe he's talking about the Google Stadia. Do you guys still play on the Google Stadia? Do any of you play on Google Stadia? I mean, if you're playing on Google Stadia. Let's continue. He's talking about upgrades. This would be a large effort that would most likely take at least several seasons to accomplish. Okay, that's fine. I mean, everything takes them several seasons to accomplish, so probably not. Well, the earliest we'll see this is season 14, season 16, probably. Maybe, so like a year from now. Okay, another issue is one that still gives me anxiety about opening the Pandora's box is what to do with queue times. If enough players prefer 6v6 to keep some form of it around, the team is not able to solve its issue previously. While we have some ideas, there's no guarantee they will work. My answer to that has always been just like the tank role just needed more variety. It just needed more variety of tanks. We have that now. I don't think the same issue will happen. Like, the problem is that there was always a lack of content in Overwatch 1. There was always a lack of content. So the Google Stadia thing was a joke. That was a punchline. Guys, stop researching it. I know nobody plays it. That was a punchline to a joke. Most people would just say a heinous thing and not even say a punchline. We want to be openly mindful, not to frustrate those who like the game as it is today, which is a lot of people. A lot of people that I don't fucking know. I mean, unless they're big streamers, I haven't seen anybody. And I might be in a closed box for all I know. I'm gonna jump on the soapbox for a moment. When you look at the changes to Overwatch since its inception, it's clear that many of those have reduced some variety within an Overwatch match. We get feedback from some players that Overwatch can feel the same from game to game. While much of this gets attributed to 5v5, we feel that there is more at play besides running experiments with 6v6. We try to run some of the re-examined ways we've tried to solve previous problems with specifically goal of bringing some of the freedom back to Overwatch. Match without severity of issues accompanied it. For instance, we think there could be other ways of putting a team together that aren't quite as rigged as a set composition. Rigged? Are you serious? Wait, the matches have been rigged from the start in Overwatch 2? I knew it. Anyways, okay, that's a joke. That's a joke. Okay. We'll be running at least one quick play hacked based on the idea in season 13. This better not be a disingenuous season 13. That's pretty close. That's a lot closer than I thought. That'll be at the end of the year. So, because we're almost to season 12 now. So, while I do like your normal voice, you being sick, you're obviously are deeper, and I do like that. Well, Miley, I appreciate it. I'm glad you can enjoy my voice in all forms, you know, even though some are obviously more enjoyed than others, but I'm glad. But my voice shouldn't be topic of conversation. There are some gotchas in this direction, but after reading 400 pages of this blog, I hope you're all able to see the trade-off to many of the decisions that go into this game, and into any game, really. Okay, so here's to wrap it up. Your feedback has driven, thoughtfully implemented the new ideas. Millions of players who jump into Overwatch each season. We owned any benefit as a community as a whole. Ultimately, the Overwatch team wants to continue building the game that you want to play season after season. This blog, or thesis rather, is just to start the conversation that isn't the last time we're going to be getting into 5v5 or 6v6. We can't wait to share more about our plans in the future. In closing, we appreciate you so much. We love to seeing your passion for the dedication of the game, the team 4, and Overwatch community. The team hears you, and we are incredibly thankful to be on this ride with you, with all of you. Can't wait to share more in the upcoming months, and let's make a great game together. This is why I think he could do it. I think his team 4 could balance Overwatch 1 easily. And with the amount of like content we're getting now, albeit some of it I've been critical on, and I don't think it's very good at times when it's just a bunch of recolors, but to get the flow of the original game back would be great, and I feel like they could do it. I feel like they could do it better than the old team did when they left it for dead. So, do I have disagreements on the fundamentals of some stuff like the Mythic Reinhardt skin and other stuff with their cosmetics and how they run that? Yes. Do I think that Team 4 is responsible for that stuff? No. I think they do their job in balancing the game for what they try to do very well. Even though some of the changes I don't feel like have a major impact because they don't attack. They try to attack the pain points that tanks and other roles have, but sometimes they hit the mark and sometimes they really, really miss the mark. And I feel like I've been extra critical on them because I just want the game I played a long time ago back. I want 6v6 back. I know I'm biased on that, but I feel like that now that they're talking about it, I was ready to say, all right, I'm quitting Overwatch for Marvel Rivals. I was ready to do that if they said that they were going to give up entirely on 6v6 and they're never bringing it back. But they say that they're bringing it back and they're going to try to get it to work. And I can't be mad about that. Although that there's some things that I do disagree with a lot of what they're doing. Like, I think that they are going to make the right decision with bringing 6v6 back. And they said that they're going to bring it back for whiles. So that's good in the sense that it'll get the nostalgia bite out of the way, right? And then we'll get honest opinions weeks down the line. And we'll see if casual players, like, I wouldn't say me, because I'm biased into 6v6. But I'd say the Overwatch 2 casual player that likes 5v5 and see if they actually like 6v6 more. Do I think tank synergies were oppressive? I think that there was 2 bad tanks, 2 bad supports that forced a oppressive playstyle into the game. Do I think 5v5 is the way that that's run is oppressive? I think almost everything to do with 5v5 is oppressive, right down to the core mechanics of the game. I genuinely do not have, I still have fun with the game. Otherwise, if I didn't enjoy the game by like a 0%, obviously I would have left this game a long time ago, but I don't enjoy it as much as I used to enjoy 6v6. I feel like that's where I'm coming from. Like, I still enjoy the game and I enjoy the characters more, but with no content being given on what was promised, I feel like we lost a better game going over to Overwatch 2. So I'm glad that they're going to try to bring back 6v6. Maybe not bring it back fully, like they might do their tests and stuff and it might be, well, that's it guys, we're sticking with 5v5, screw you. That could always happen, but the fact that they're going to try gives me hope. I think season 12 is going to be a dead season besides Juno. I think Juno is going to be really fun. I really enjoyed playing Juno last week when she was available. I think if Juno came out instead of BAP or Kiriko, I think the game would be a lot different, because the way that character works is you have to be good with that character to get value off of them. So, you know. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to blow my nose again. I'll be right back. I gotta do it. I can't breathe.